Alrighty. We're going to see how YouTube handles it. YouTube always acts a little differently whenever I try to stream to it. The inferior live streaming platform. I better tweet out that we're live here soon. Once the encoder gets back to me. Yes, it's getting back to me. Good. Welcome. Hello, everyone. We don't do these very often, so you're in for a treat. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on Twitch a lot more often, but I like to remind our YouTube people that we go live more often than just YouTube. How's it going, people? We had some questions in the chat already that I was about to answer, but I was like, it's time to go live. I might as well tweet out that I'm live. There. Tweet has been sent. Someone was asking me how I feel about benchmarks in general. Are they useful? Do you ever care about them? And the answer is yes. I think benchmarks can be reasonably helpful. I don't think there's something you need to judge the entire product off of, but I find a benchmark actually a lot more helpful than oftentimes the number the company will give you. Like on Microsoft's website, they're sometimes just like, it includes a 2 gigabyte GPU. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. Like a 2 gigabyte GPU could be way better than a 4 gigabyte GPU if it's a different kind. Like, it's not a good indication. Whereas I think if you have a universal benchmark like Geekbench that you score everything off of and compare everything with the same standards in the same benchmarking app, you can get a pretty good indication of how good the CPUs are in a device. Not that you should not buy a product if it has a bad benchmark, or get a product because it has a good benchmark. It obviously, a benchmark on its own doesn't matter as much as just how does it handle the power the CPU has. Benchmark is more or less just a general speed test for one component of the device. Doesn't simply make the whole thing good. Just like knowing the display resolution, that's one piece of data. Okay, we know how many pixels are on the smartphone display. It doesn't mean that the phone with the most amount of pixels has the best display. That's one part of a display that makes it good, but there are lots of other things like color accuracy and true blacks and things like that that indicate whether or not the display is overall good for looking at. But there are other benchmarks that, like DxOMark, as someone already brought up, like DxOMark, that I do not think is a good indication, because I personally think that photo performance and video performance is very, very subjective, especially when they're so similar the way they are right now. There's so many smartphone cameras out there, and they get so incredibly close to each other in performance. If you can bring it up in video form, try to explain the differences, but I don't think I don't think you can get photo and video quality down to a solid number, which is what DxOMark encourages. They encourage it to be reduced down to a single top score and then just rating them all that way. I don't think that's very good and very accurate. And the fact that they gave the OnePlus 7 Pro a super high score, I think speaks volumes, because a lot of people saw the 7 Pro camera and were like, this isn't very good. And yet on DxOMark, it's way up there. It's super good. It's better than the iPhone, or better than the Pixel. And you look at them and you're like, not really. Vin _ super chat. It says, do you think iOS will get a redesign anytime soon? I doubt it. I wouldn't count on it. I think that iOS has a very iconic and understood look that people are accustomed to and used to. And the main reason you saw that giant redesign from iOS 6 to 7 was because of change in design heads. Now, I understand that Johnny Ive is leaving and there's probably going to be a change in design heads, but I don't think that guarantees a design change, because iOS is bigger on more devices than it ever was in the past, even more than it was back when iOS 6 to 7 happened. And I don't think they can as easily make that big a change, especially because iOS is on so many different devices now. It's not as simple. Back in iOS 6 and 7 days, I'm trying to remember what year that was, but I believe it was mostly on iPhone 4 3.5-inch display, and then the iPhone 5 4-inch display. Those were the two iPhone displays. That's it. Those were the two. And then I believe there wasn't even an iPad mini at the time yet. So all the iPad displays were the same size in the same aspect ratio. So redesigning all of iOS was a lot more simple back then, because also iOS was not as complicated as it is now. It does way more than it used to. Whereas now with the iPad Pros, we have 12.9 inch, 11 inch, 10.5 inch, 7.9 inch, 9.7 inch, all these different 7.9 inch for the mini, all of these different screen sizes, plus the iPhone is all these different screen sizes as well, between 6.5 inch, 6.1 inch, 5.8 inch, 5.5 inch, 4.7 inch, and with the SE we still have 4-inch displays as well. So redesigning iOS is way more complicated today than it was way back then. So I think it's more likely Apple will just continue to try to perfect and tweak iOS as we know it right now, rather than they would spend the time just redesigning the entire thing, just for the sake of, let's mix it up. The Proto channel super chat, it says, would you like an SD card on iPhones? No, because there are other smartphones out there with micro SD card expansion, and it's inherently slower than internal storage. So there's a reason a lot of smartphone manufacturers have moved away from it. It's because you're limited to what data you can put on that expandable SD card, because it's slower and it doesn't show up as easily as the internal storage does. So I've never been in a situation where I've wanted to go out and buy a micro SD card and put it in my iPhone. If I know how much storage I'm going to use, which I've been an iPhone user for a long time now, I know how much I'm going to use. So I'm just going to buy the model with the storage I need. And if there's like back catalogs of pictures and videos that I don't need to access often, but I would still like to keep, all that's automatically backed up to my iCloud, which is seamless and in the background. I don't have to worry about storing it all locally, because then if you drop your phone or someone steals your phone, you're not out all of your pictures. You can still just access it by logging into your iCloud. Andrew Caldwell super chatted, thank you very much, says, been saving for a year and finally have the grand needed for the iPhone 11. Should I upgrade from a 7 Plus or wait another year for the 2020 upgrade? Comes down to you, dude. I mean, your decision will ultimately be finalized when the iPhone 11 actually comes out, but 7 Plus is definitely going to be a substantial upgrade. I mean, you're moving from Touch ID to Face ID, from a 5.5-inch display to whatever model you get. If it's the regular 11, it's a 5.8-inch display. It's OLED. Glass back, you're going to have a really good CPU, you're going to have incredible triple camera on the back. But if your 7 Plus is in good shape and it's fine and it's sustainable, yeah, obviously if you want to wait a year, next year the iPhone's going to be even better, no surprise, probably for the same price, hopefully for the same price. If they make it more expensive, that would suck. But yeah, it comes down to you. If you're fine with your 7 Plus and you don't really have any issues with it, then I would say keep it, and if you're not really worried about it, just hang on to it for a little bit longer. But if it's not doing very well, it's aging, or you get tired of it, or the 11 comes out, you go to an Apple store, you try it out, you really, really like it, and you're really impressed with it, you're like, hey, you know what, this is really cool, I like this, or you could utilize the new camera technology or the new CPU speed in some way for how you use your iPhone on a daily basis, then yeah, I could understand why you'd want to buy it this year. Jackson Taylor Tech Video super chatted as well, thank you, who says, do you wish Apple made a mid-range tower Mac? Yes, in fact, I wish they made the Mac Pro a mid-range tower Mac, and then they just don't make the Mac Pro. I kind of want them, I feel like they completely missed the mark, because usually the people who want an upgradable, customizable machine are doing it because they're trying to save money. Like all-in-one iMacs are kind of what have made Apple famous more in the last couple decades. They're known for like one unified package. You get everything you need in that one purchase. You just plug it in and it starts working. You got your speakers, your display, your computer, GPU, CPU, storage, all built into one design, and it's simple and easy. But the reason you would want a customizable Mac or a customizable computer of any kind is you don't want to use those specific parts. You don't want to use that monitor, that speaker, that design that's really slim and really cool, because it's kind of expensive to go with that slim and unique design of an all-in-one. So you want something that's not going to be as pretty, that's not going to be as compact or as simple, but it gives you more flexibility because you'll have the control you want to over your computer. If you're making that choice, it's usually because you want to save money, and I feel like the Mac Pro completely jumped over all of that all-in-one purposes of like getting a more affordable Mac and just said, okay, yes, we're all right with a customizable, upgradable Macintosh. It's just going to be more expensive than literally any other computer we make, and the baseline specs are ridiculous. In fact, I don't think anyone should buy the base model Mac Pro because of how bad the GPU and storage is that they started off with. The only reason they made that base model Mac Pro is for people who like are going to buy up a ton of these things and then swap out the parts anyway. So they just needed something low and basic for people who use these things for server space, or combining a bunch of Mac Pros together. That's probably the people who are buying it for the slots, essentially buying it for the expansion down the road. If you really want a Mac Pro just for like your daily needs or your workflow at your desk, then your budget better be like well into $10,000 if you actually want the Mac Pro to be worth it. If you're looking at a if you're at a $6,000 budget for your desktop machine that you're just going to be editing your videos or rendering on just by yourself, then I would say the iMac Pro, even though it's not upgradable and customizable, is still a way better deal. It's $1,000 cheaper, and you can get way more out of it than that $6K Mac Pro, which is ridiculous. To upgrade the Mac Pro to a point where it's probably worth it is way into $10,000 plus. Are there people out there that the Mac Pro is good for? Yes, but I think it would have been better if Apple would have made like a smaller, more affordable Mac Pro for people who are trying to not buy the iMac Pro and keep their computer budget under $5,000 because maybe they already have a monitor. They don't need a 5K panel to pay, that they're paying for, or they already have good speakers or headphones that they really like, so they don't want to pay for all these internal speaker designs that the iMac Pro has. I think the iMac Pro is like the best all-in-one you can get. But for the people who aren't looking for an all-in-one, they're most likely trying to save money. So kind of confuses me. When's the Apple Card launching, and will you get one? That's a good question. I still don't know. I really wish I did. I want to get one, yeah. As soon as it's available, I'll certainly sign up for it. But, yeah, they kept saying this summer. I haven't heard any leaks of a release date or anything, but all they've told us is this summer, and it is summer. It is July, what's today? The July 19th. We're in the dead middle of summer, which means that it should be any time now. Any day, any week. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't launch when I'm out of town. Hello, Isaiah T. We have a YouTube member in the chat. Thank you for your support. Why don't they just get the insides of the iMac Pro and turn it into a customizable computer? I couldn't agree more. That would be perfect. I think a lot of people would be happy with that if you just gave people the specs of the iMac Pro, but just take out the speakers, take out the display, take out that all-in-one clean design, just the same components in an upgradable fashion. People would be more than happy with that. Started at like $3,000, even $4,000. I feel like most people would be fine with just paying a little bit less for the iMac Pro, and you're not getting a monitor, a webcam, or speakers, but you're getting the same components so you can use it with your own monitor. And then down the road, it's still upgradable. So if new hardware comes out, you're able to swap it out if you want. People would be plenty happy with that. Are the MacBook deals worth it? If you're a student right now and you can get a pair of headphones with it, I think so, yeah. I know a lot of people that are buying the new baseline MacBook Pro. If you saw John Morrison's video on it, it's pretty good performance-wise. I mean, obviously, it's not amazing, but a lot of people just see that super low clock speed and they're like, oh, this thing's slow as heck. It's a terrible CPU. But it's still a quad-core, and it's still a fairly recent generation one. So if you're in that budget of like $1,000 to $1,500 for a laptop and you can get free headphones with it, don't even unbox the headphones. Like, get a free pair of Beats Solo 3s and then sell them for $250. Put them on Facebook or put them on Craigslist or whatever and be like, hey, unopened, haven't used it, brand new pair of headphones. I'll sell it to you for like 20% off of retail, and then just get your money back. I mean, right now is a great time to buy one, I think. Get 2019 MacBook Pro 13-inch or wait for the Scissor Switch. Scissor Switch is a Quo rumor, guys, and Quo is usually pretty accurate, but he's not good with his timelines. So if you're waiting for the Scissor Switch, it could be a very, very long time. I mean, he just said that like the scissor mechanism would be coming on a redesigned MacBook Air, and the MacBook Air just got refreshed. So there's a good chance he's off on his timeline, and we're not going to see that redesigned MacBook Air till 2020. That's still very, very possible right now. So just because Quo said they're working on doing a Scissor Switch doesn't mean it's soon. So if you need a MacBook soon, or you need it before school starts next month, and you need it quickly, then I don't think it makes sense to wait for the Scissor Switch. If you're just bored and you don't need a MacBook but you'd like one, and the butterfly key is scaring you away, keep in mind right now there haven't been any reports of the 4th generation butterfly keyboard failing. Even if it does, it's a free repair. So don't be too afraid of the butterfly keyboard unless you just can't stand that travel. Some people just hate that fundamentally. I understand. I'm fine with it, but I understand why some people don't like it. Most people just get used to it. Isaiah T said, "That's so smart. Why hasn't Apple monthly MacBook refresher thought of doing that?" I don't know what you're in response to, but I appreciate it. Writing in all caps won't get your question answered. Hey, thank you, Zach. Appreciate you trying to keep the peace in the chat as much as possible. Do you prefer aesthetics or functionality? It's a healthy balance. I don't think anyone goes one way completely. I mean, obviously, you can go too far with functionality to the point that the aesthetics are no longer worth it. It's a healthy balance. You got to meet in the middle somewhere. I think most people stand there as well. Like, if there was an iPhone with insanely good specs and it was a really good camera, really good CPU, gorgeous display, no notch, and Face ID underneath the display, and everyone's like, wow, this is really, really cool, and it's like bright hot pink on the back, and that's the only color you can get it in. That would probably scare some people off. Not everyone, because some people would be like, yeah, I'll just put a skin on it or put a case on it. But yeah, obviously some people draw the line on aesthetics to a certain point. Matthew Valdez super chatted, says, "Don't buy MacBook from Apple. Best Buy is constantly dropping prices. I bought 2019 $1,700 MacBook Pro for $1,400 this summer." There you go. Always check around for deals. That can be a good idea. Do you think Tesla Model 3 will reduce its price more by end of 2019? It's possible, but I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't say for sure. I think, didn't we get like the $35,000 Model 3 like earlier this year? I think that was in March. Hold on. I'm going to look up my video. I remember doing a video on it. I thought I did. I can't find it. I've made too many videos. Oh, 4 months ago. Today's changes to the Tesla line. Granted, they made a lot of changes to the $35,000 Tesla to make it a worse deal. So they lowered the price a little bit, and then they rearranged the lineup because they said, okay, we'll include autopilot on all the models now, but that means that the starting price is a little bit higher. But it's not $3,000 higher, which was what it used to be to get autopilot. So it's possible. I would say there's like a 50% chance of the Model 3 getting a little cheaper by the end of the year, but not by much. If it does get cheaper, it's gonna get like $1,000 cheaper, not drastically cheaper. The Proto channel super chat, it says, worst Apple product besides Apple TV 4K. I'm gonna say the Designed by Apple book, because that technically counts as an Apple product. It's a $300 piece of book with just pictures of Apple products in it. So to me, that's stupid. Felipe Cabrera super chat, it says that Facewin the 2018 MacBook Air is $2,000 in your country. Yes, I know. I'm sorry. It's so expensive everywhere else. I know. Model 3 or wait for the Model Y. Obviously, I haven't driven or seen or been in a Model Y, but personally, there's, in my opinion, as you know, I'm married, but I don't have any kids. As just a guy who works from home, and my wife commutes to work, and we don't really go on a lot of road trips, the Model 3 is perfectly fine for us. For us, there is literally no reason to get the Model Y. I have heard people's explanation as to why they want the Model Y, mostly because of the hatchback and the added space on the inside, which is apparently more helpful for like loading things up in the back of your car. Like, not a situation I'm in right now, but I've heard people online, because I watch a ton of Tesla videos. It's probably not healthy how many YouTubers that talk about Tesla I watch. If there's a YouTuber that talks about Tesla, I've probably seen them, even like the tiny ones with under 1,000 subscribers. I've seen them all. The most common application I find people wanting the Model Y for is moms who are going to have to load their baby's stroller into the car when they go to a park. The Model 3 has a regular trunk, which has a lot of space, but the entry point is a lot smaller than it is on the Model S and the X, and that's a $80,000, $90,000 car. Most people aren't able to afford that. The reason people want the Model Y is because even though the range is a little bit worse and maybe the car is a little bit more expensive, they want to be able to have that giant hatchback on the back so that they can load in larger objects like baby strollers and things like that. Or some people want it for the extra seating, because you can't get a 7-seater on a Model 3, but you technically can on a Model Y, even though those back seats are very, very tight and compact. If you're a parent or you're a mom, you definitely want like the little kids in the back. You can fit them back there. You're not going to be driving around adults in the very back of the Model Y. But yeah, parents and families like that. And there's a lot of them. That's a large market. Okay. So don't act like that's a small niche. In fact, Tesla's predicting the Model Y could potentially sell better than the Model 3. I think there's a good chance of that considering how close the prices are. They're very similarly priced, which makes sense because they're very similar cars. Of all Tesla vehicles that have ever been released, those two cars are the most in common, I would say. I haven't followed the Neuralink thing. I'm sorry. I didn't watch a lot of that event. I haven't kept up with it, but yeah, I'll have to catch up on that. I know what they're trying to do with Neuralink, but I haven't done much research on it. Let's see. What someone asked if I'll get Donald Trump on the podcast. Yes, I'll make that our top priority, getting our president on the tech podcast. First thing we got to focus on is getting ourselves on the tech podcast, though, because that takes a while. Are you going to raid Area 51? Duh. I'll see you all there. If you're not there, you're not a real fan. Will you get a Model 3 with the second-gen self-driving chip in 2020? It depends on when the self-driving chip comes out. But no, I don't. I believe all of the Autopilot 3.0 and full self-driving chips are integrated into any Tesla made after April 2019 now. So do you think the next generation budget iPad will have a headphone jack? Probably. Didn't the iPad mini? The iPad Air and the iPad mini both have headphone jacks, so I don't know. I don't see why they would remove it on the budget iPad. I guess it is a new design, so maybe. Should I update my new iPad Pro to iPadOS beta? Okay, a lot of people complain about the betas, and I feel like they still don't understand the purpose of them. Guys, you got to understand, Apple releases the betas so that all of us can find the bugs. They don't release it because it's ready. If it was ready, then they would just release it for everybody. The reason they do the beta testing is so that all of us can find the bugs and report it to Apple. So if you're planning on getting the public beta just because you want the software early, just remember there's going to be holdups. There's going to be issues, very noticeable ones. Like I'm on the latest version of iPadOS right now, and I got to say some pretty major features are missing. There's pretty major features that are bugging out. It's not the most stable beta. It's not like a lot of people assume that as the public beta goes on, it gets more stable. That's not true. The first beta of iOS 13 and iPadOS actually worked pretty fine for me. And then the second beta was okay. It added a few things. It was like, okay, this is working. Beta 3 was awful. Beta 3 made everything laggy and apps were freezing and it was just getting worse. And then Beta 4 has been a little bit better for the iPhone, but even worse for the iPad. Like on my iPad right now, I can't do any split screen multitasking. I can't get a single app to work with split screen. So I'm back to iOS like 8 days where now on my iPad I have to use every single app in full screen, which you realize how often you use split screen when it's no longer working. Can't get it to work. So it's incredibly frustrating, but I don't complain about it because I know it's in beta and I know they're doing this and I report the bugs I get to Apple so that they can fix it. It's the whole purpose. So yes, of course, if you don't care about the bugs and you want to put up with bugs so that you can have the newest features, that's on you, but just don't be surprised. Don't be shocked if there ends up being a ton of bugs. And if you use your iPad for work or school related things that are like very, very important, like for me, I use it for video thumbnails, but if the video thumbnail feature didn't work, I have other iOS devices I can make my video thumbnails on. But if you're using it for work or school or something and you cannot have bugs on those devices, I wouldn't do it. If you're just using your iPad for like media consumption, then sure, I guess there's not too many risks involved. It's like, oh no, dang it, I can't watch YouTube on my iPad. I have to watch it on my phone now. It's like that's okay. But if it ends up being like, oh no, I can't get my school assignment or I can't get my boss his, documents or something like that, that's a big issue. Michael Jacobs didn't say anything, but appreciate the super chat. Thank you. What do you think about 3D Touch on iOS 13? It's clearly on its way out. I still feel like people are not understanding how I'm describing 3D Touch with iOS 13. Like, people are like, oh, they removed 3D Touch. It's a bug, though. It's like, no, it's not a bug that they're making deliberate design choices to get rid of it so that it's not as useful. Like adding 3D Touch features to devices without 3D Touch. iOS 13, in my opinion, it completely confirms that the next iPhone won't have 3D Touch. Like, it's obvious. There's no more first-party apps take advantage of Peek and Pop. There's no reason to, because now when you're in an email or whatever, you can press and hold and get all the quick actions you need. You don't need to, like, peek and open it all the way. You notice I can't pop anymore? That's not a bug. They've redesigned it because all of the options you would need to do for that email now pop up down here. So there's no point for 3D Touch on iOS 13, which is making me more okay with it being gone, because I like 3D Touch and I'm annoyed that they're removing it, but the changes they're making in iOS 13 are making it much, much easier to live without, because they're adding all these 3D Touch capabilities to devices like the 10R and the iPad. There's third-party apps that obviously can still utilize the 3D Touch functionality, but the first-party apps are clearly getting rid of it. The only apps that still utilize 3D Touch are the third-party ones, and they're not adapting their apps yet, obviously, because the iOS 13 is not out for everyone. It's not public. It's just a beta right now. Once it is out for everyone, I can imagine most third-party apps redesigning their apps just like Apple did with the first-party apps. So that's what's most likely. Let's see. Matthew Mills, thank you for the super chat. I don't see a question, but I appreciate it. Shrek super chatted. Thank you. It says, here's my YouTube Red free super chat. Love your videos. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Craig outright said that Peek and Pop is gone. Yes. 3D Touch is now solely a faster long press. Well, that's what it was in the past, but the difference was in iOS 12, haptic touch was inherently slower than 3D Touch. Now, I know everyone was like, oh, in Beta 4, they brought back 3D Touch, but it's still slower than it used to be, in my opinion. Like, I can still try to 3D Touch on apps on my home screen, and it doesn't open like it used to. Like, it's still just, it's slower than it used to be, and I can still activate it with haptic touch. I didn't hard press that time. I can still activate it normally, and it'll do that the same way it did before. So whether or not the home screen is measuring the pressure sensitivity, it may be, but it's still slower than it used to be. Before, 3D Touch was like instant. You would press really hard and all those menus would come up right away. And also on iOS 12, like I talked about, haptic touch was pretty slow. With iOS 13, they've sped up haptic touch so that instead of like pressing and holding and waiting and then something happening when you're on the 10R or on the iPad Pro, pressing and holding activates things a lot faster than it did in the past. So to me, like, all of these design choices that are not bugs are clearly evident that Apple is getting people ready for the removal of 3D Touch. It's like not even a question anymore. It's obvious to me. And because of the changes they're making to iOS, I'm more or less okay with it. Like, I like 3D Touch, but the changes they're making to the OS make a lot of sense to me, and I'm getting more okay with the idea. I'm like, okay. With iOS 12, removing 3D Touch was a big deal. With iOS 13, removing 3D Touch is going to be barely noticeable, especially for mainstream people. They're not going to notice at all. Okay, I disagree. 3D Touch is not out in 13. It's very much an attempt to cross over the two with less coding. 3D Touch is very much alive. Will they keep it on iPhone 11? I don't know, but it isn't as intentional. They're definitely keeping it out. If the leaks are saying they're keeping it out and the code is rewriting itself so that there's no need for Peek and Pop, and they're slowing down what 3D Touch used to do and they're speeding up what haptic touch used to do, it's clear. It's very obvious to me. I would be very shocked if they kept it around. Most likely they're removing it, especially given the iPhone XR was the best-selling iPhone this year, and that doesn't have 3D Touch. So the consumer market has spoken. That's not an important feature for them, and it's expensive to implement for Apple, so clearly they're going to get rid of it. Harsh, I don't know how to say your name. How do you think Maps Look Around will be updated? Well, I guess the same way Google Maps updates. There's still a lot of Apple cars driving around. I'll still see a post here and there that's like, Apple car spotted All they do is just drive around with the LiDAR and the camera sensors, and they map out everything, and then I'm sure they upload it to the Apple Maps server over time and try to get it updated as quick as possible. But it's definitely not available in a ton of places. Google Street View is available like almost everywhere, but look around is not out there very much. Andrew Caldwell said, would you rather have zero cam bump or smaller notch? Thank you for the super chat. Ooh, that's a good question. Here's the thing. If the notch is gone, but I still have all the same things the notch provided, without a pop-up camera or anything like that, without any motors or moving parts, if I can still get Face ID, still have that front-firing speaker, and still have a front-facing camera that's just as good as it is now, I would much rather have, you said smaller notch. Yeah, I don't hate the camera bump that much. I think I would notice that more often because I'm looking at the front of the device. Not having a camera bump is like, okay, cool. But the smaller notch is something I would definitely notice. And as long as I have all the same advantages as the previous notch, then yeah, I would choose the smaller notch. Hypothetically, would you choose 3D Touch or ProMotion 120 Hertz on the next iPhone? Well, now that 3D Touch is not as useful because of the changes they've made with iOS 13, then yeah, I would easily go with ProMotion. I would notice that kind of thing. I appreciate the ProMotion display. Whereas the fact that 3D Touch is now no longer necessary on our phones has made me go like, yeah, okay, they can remove it, and it's not going to really make that big a difference. Do you think they should make a Pro iPhone version aside from the flagship? I mean, in a way, they kind of have, given both the OLED models aren't selling as good as the XR, so the XR is kind of the normal iPhone, and the two OLEDs are kind of the Pro models, just like the current MacBook lineup. You know, we have the MacBook Air, and then we have two sizes for the MacBook Pro. I don't know if they should incorporate the Pro name into iPhone, though, because I do agree that the word Pro is overused in marketing terms. But I understand why it is overused, because companies are trying to indicate that this product is like above average. It does more than the average pair of headphones, or it does more than the average phone, or it does more than the average iPad. So they're trying to indicate that it does more in a simple and easy way. Adding Pro to the name is a very simple way to convey that message. But I still agree with people that say it's overused. It's like, yeah, but Pro is a vague term, so it makes sense as to why it's overused. Half the time, people can't decide if Pro stands for professional or productivity, both of which are vague. Being productive. Okay, you can be productive with this product. That's very vague. Same with professional. That just means any product you use for your business. So technically, you could make the iPhone a Pro, and if someone uses it for their business, they're technically not wrong to call it that. Would you rather come to San Diego with your best friend Randy, or middle of nowhere with that bum and Sweeney? Randy's in the chat. Hello. In the middle of nowhere with Bum and Sweeney. I would like both if possible. That's a tough question. I do have more leniency towards San Diego because I have some friends down there, aside from Randy, that just moved down there. So I would like to visit them as well. So I guess I lean a little bit more San Diego because it's closer. But I want to see both of you. That includes the Bum and Sweeney. Are you able to fit the 10S Max in your jeans? I can't even fit the 10 in my fitted business casual pants. An edge-to-edge SE-sized phone has an audience. Can you please speak to this? Well, Mike, the good news is they are working on smaller iPhones. I mean, there's going to be a 5.4-inch iPhone in 2020. So they're not disregarding the small iPhone market. In fact, if you go look at the Android competitors, Apple caters to the small phone market better than anybody. I mean, OnePlus only sells like one size, and that size is 6.7 inches, which is huge for a ton of people. And I think like the smallest Galaxy S10 phone, isn't that 5.8 inches? So, yeah, Apple caters to the small phone market better than anyone, and it sounds like in 2020 they're going to go even smaller. The 5.4-inch OLED model is going to be a smaller footprint than the iPhone 6 was. Even tinier than that phone, which by today's standards looks tiny compared to this. So I don't wear jeans these days. I'm rocking the shorts because it's hot in here all the time. So I'm not wearing jeans, but I would say anytime I'm at my desk, my phone's not in my pocket. It's usually on the stupid Pixel stand charging. Right now it isn't because I got a full charge. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Every live stream I'm supposed to check my battery health. I'm going to tell everybody when it finally drops. Nope. Still at 100. I'm sorry if it can't focus it, but there's 3 digits there if you can't tell. I'm still at 100%. Used it every single day since launch day. This phone has seen a lot of use and inductively charged only. Still at 100% battery health, so that's good. I think the optimized battery charging feature helps as well. But yeah, they're going to be making a smaller iPhone that hopefully can fit in your jeans, Mike. I hope so. My brother has S10. What features do you want on the next Mac OS? Everything I want in relation to Mac OS is like very tiny. Everything's like very, very little things. I don't want a giant redesign. But we'll redesign it from the ground up. I don't need that. What I need is when you take a screenshot and it shrinks it down to the little preview in the bottom right corner, I want that to support drag and drop so that I can take a screenshot and then drag that little preview and drop it directly into my Final Cut timeline or drop it directly into Discord. That would save so much time because right now it doesn't support that. You can like click on the little preview screenshot and edit it, but you can't drag it and drop it into something. If they just change that, I would be happy. So that's it. Other than that, I can't think of much else to add to macOS. The volume indicator could be changed like it is on iOS. I would like that. Like, it was cool that both iPadOS and iOS 13 all got different volume indicators, but the iMac didn't. The macOS didn't, and it probably could be. If it was a little drop-down menu like it is on iPad and it goes up and down, it doesn't have to be touch-friendly. I just mean something a bit more clean and unique would be nice. I don't know. Let's see. What do you think? When do you think the iMac will be redesigned? Should I wait to buy one until then? If you need one soon, I wouldn't count on it being redesigned quickly because there's been no evidence of that, and I feel like we'd hear about it long in advance. We knew about like the 6K display months before it came out, and we've heard nothing about an iMac redesign, so I wouldn't count on it coming soon. It's probably because the iMac models are built much more on functionality than they are aesthetics, and I still think they look very good. I get that the bezels are thick and all, but in comparison to that Pro Display XDR, oh my goodness, like I kind of think the iMac Pro looks better even with its thick bezels comparing to that 6K monitor with all the holes on the back and it's all boxy on the back. When I look at the back and the sides of my iMac Pro, it's like so thin, it's so narrow, and they're able to pack so much power in there. I kind of still think it works in today's standards. I agree it would be nice if they redesigned it and gave it some thinner bezels, but there's been no leaks or evidence to suggest that's coming anytime soon. So that's why I'm just telling you, don't count on it. Don't assume it's coming soon. My cousin's uncle works at Apple, and he says that the Apple Pencil 4 will support Nose ID. I like how he says cousin's uncle. Wouldn't that be your dad? Bruh. Why is the Pro Display XDR 6K and not 8K? I don't know. Don't ask for more pixels. 6K is already stupid. You're not going to notice the difference on a 32-inch display. 6K, a 4K monitor at 32 inches would have been fine. 8K, it probably can't be supported over a single Thunderbolt 3 port, and that's what they were trying to get it at, is just one cable. Right now, 8K requires 2 display ports, so it would have been more uncomfortable. Plus, unnoticeable. 8K is so stupid. You need a monitor over 80 inches to see a difference between 4K and 8K, which is why I think 5K monitors are stupid. I would have gladly bought my iMac Pro with a 1440p display if it was an option. Aaron, thank you for the super chat as well. What will the iPhone 12 Max look like? Probably not much different than from the current iPhone XS Max, to be honest with you. I personally like the Pro Display XDR over an iMac. Really? Well, good luck with that. Are you getting one? Because that's an expensive purchase that doesn't even have a computer inside it. It's amazing to me that the iMac Pro is thinner than the Pro Display, and it has an entire machine inside of it. What does the Pro Display have over the iMac Pro? 1,000 pixels. Cool. It's like a little bit better. Your take on the iPad line? I think Apple needs to simplify the lining/naming like they did with the MacBook lineup. I'm a sales rep in the industry, I see the confusion of consumers firsthand. Yeah, I can see the marketing confusion, but at the same time, iPads are increasing in sales, so I feel like Apple's doing something right. I think having a diverse lineup for everyone, trying to make an iPad that can fit everybody's needs is good. At the same time, having a diverse lineup is kind of a benefit. Um, I agree with you. It is a little bit confusing that there's so many different sizes and all. It's like the only product line we have from Apple that has iPad Pro, Air, Mini, and just iPad. And there's different sizes for the Pro, so it's just kind of all over the place. Um, but I can still think of a specific demographic for almost all of them. I feel like if there's a 10.2-inch budget iPad coming out, then the iPad Air becomes a little pointless. Like if you're trying to buy a 10.5-inch to 10.2-inch iPad, just get the budget one. If you want a laminated display, just go for the iPad Pro. Just spend the extra money, get a USB-C ProMotion equipped iPad. There is a bit of a market for the iPad Air. People who don't want like the super cheap budget iPad. They still want the laminated display. They still want a pretty good CPU. They still want the smart keyboard, but they don't quite want the iPad Pro. I just feel like that's the smallest demographic. So if you had to simplify it, I would ditch the Air, or I would call the budget iPad the new iPad Air and get rid of the 10.5-inch iPad Air. It's kind of messy, I agree, but it seems to be working. So, David, Kevin, Super Chat, it says, thinking of upgrading to the iPhone 11 Max. Should I do it? I own a S9 Plus, but Instagram and Snapchat camera and video quality sucks on Android. Ooh, that is true. Sorry about that with optimization. Switching, it depends on how long you've been on Android. If you've never used iOS before, it could be quite the learning curve. So I encourage you to like mess around with iOS at an Apple store to make sure like you can adjust to it, because it is very different than Android. And if you're used to Android, you might not be happy switching to iOS. So mess around with it first and make sure you're okay with switching to iOS, more than just like camera optimization and third-party apps. But yeah, I think the 11 Max will be, it's an expensive phone, but it's going to be a very capable one. When will Apple Card get the touch bar? I know, right? We need the touch bar on our credit cards. Is the bigger 2019 iPhone a little thicker than the current XS Max? I believe all the new iPhones this year are going to be slightly thicker. Not to the extent that you'd notice, like you'd have to get a really precise measurement tool to see the difference in thickness. But from what I've read, I think all three are getting slightly thicker, but they're all getting better batteries. That's why they're getting thicker. It's not getting bigger for no reason. For one, it's thinner camera bump, and for two, the casings themselves are getting thicker overall, so that you can have longer battery lives, which is what we've been asking for years. So, yeah, no problem. Ted Cohen, thank you for the super chat. I don't see a question, but I appreciate it. Drew, can you solve a Rubik's Cube? I mean, if you're asking if I'm physically capable of solving one, yes. But do I have like the mental patience to solve one? No. I'm sure I could figure it out. I'm sure I could read about it and learn about it and study the patterns. I used to have a Rubik's Cube when I was little, but I really just played with it and I never solved it. It's still unsolved to this day, probably. It's probably in some landfill at this point. I don't know where it is. Why didn't they add portrait mode to the back camera on the iPad Pro 2018 when it's on the 10R? I don't know. They could still add it to the 10S and the 10S Max. I don't know why they haven't added it to that. I get that they have portrait mode, but it's only on the telephoto. Why can't they give portrait mode to the wide angle? I don't know. But probably because they know that's likely not a huge selling point of the iPad Pro. I agree with you. It should be there. I think if you can figure out how to do portrait mode on a single camera, then you should add it to as many devices as possible. I imagine the real-time portrait mode rendering is probably requiring the A12 chip, but the iPad Pro has the A12X chip, so it could easily handle it. I don't know why they haven't added that. I don't know. Something about trying to convince people that the 10R camera is special somehow. I don't know. Only the 10R can do it. But I'm hoping that there is a difference, though. A lot of people forget about that. The 10R portrait mode only works on people. The 10S portrait mode works on anything. So there is a little bit of software difference, and that's what makes me think the ultra-wide lens being added to the OLED models this year is going to allow you to have portrait mode on both telephoto and the main angle lenses, because right now, for those of you who don't know, portrait mode on your 10S or 10 or 10S Max is using both lenses. It's taking the photo with the telephoto lens, and then it's collecting data with the wide-angle lens. It uses both to create that portrait mode effect. But with the 10R, because it's only software-based, you can't use portrait mode with anything. It can only work with people. So I'm thinking that if they add that ultra-wide, then it would allow you to take portrait mode shots of anything with the wide-angle lens and render it in real time, which is something the Pixel still can't do to this day. All right. We got a couple super chats here to catch up on. Leah Knight, thank you for the super chat, says, do you think Apple will redesign iOS and iOS 14? I doubt it. Wouldn't count on it. It's possible, but I personally don't think they will. iOS is too distorted and too all over the place. It would take way too much time, and they would take too many risks designating so much of the software team just to simply redesigning the OS. I think it's more likely that they're just going to focus on adding features and making it more stable. So, no, I don't think they're going to redesign it. But thank you for the super chat. Cosro super chatted as well. Says, one Apple sheep to another. Hey, I'm starting at the Apple store this Monday, so excited about it. If you come to Glasgow, Scotland, drop by. I will definitely do that. I don't know when the next time I'll be in Scotland, but congratulations. I hope your job goes well. Good luck. Very good luck. Check them out, people. Maglada Tutorials super chatted, says, should I upgrade to NS from 8 Plus? Keep going. How is that an upgrade? Should I upgrade to 10S? Oh, from 8 Plus. Sorry. I thought you were saying you wanted to go to an 8 Plus to a 10S. I wouldn't right now. You're way too close. Like 2 months from today, there's going to be an 11. So if you don't, even if you don't care about the 11, just wait for the 10S to get cheaper, because I'm sure when the 11 comes out at Best Buy, you'll be able to get the 10S for $900 instead of $1,000, or some company or carrier will have it on sale. I wouldn't buy a 10S right now. It's way too late in the game. We got, today's the 19th. Usually when Apple unveils their phones, it's always in September, and usually the keynote is like the second to third week. Usually the second week. It'll probably be like September 12th or 14th or 15th or something like that. So by now, in 2 months, 60 days, there will be an iPhone 11. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce all your Scotland names. Glasgow. I don't know. Do you think Apple should switch to custom chips in Macs or AMD? I would like to see them switch to custom chips. I know that there would be huge holdups with that, and they would have to redesign a lot, like the architecture of the operating system, and they would have to work out deals with Intel so that they could still have Thunderbolt 3 support on an ARM-based machine. Like, I know it would complicate things, but seeing how fast Apple can make CPUs on the iPad makes me want them to put it on a Mac. And I know that it would be like, oh, you can't use these third-party applications anymore. I'd be like, I don't care. Like, they redesign to the better chip. I don't think Apple should be forced to adapt to third-party hardware if they can make that hardware themselves better. If they can make it better and faster, then it's worth it. Then Adobe or other games or whatever, they need to update their apps to support Apple's new standard or be left behind, because the majority of people on Mac are probably going to end up using Final Cut anyway. And with Final Cut hardware optimization with an Apple-made CPU, the performance you would get on that thing is insane. It would be unlike any other computer. It would be great. Will you get the OnePlus 7 Pro T? Oh, God. Are they going to call it that? That sounds awful. Is there going to be a T version of the 7 Pro? I think they need to just switch to numbers after that. They just need to call it OnePlus 8 Pro after that. Like, they shouldn't call it the OnePlus 7T Pro. Ugh. God, that would be horrible. Do you think the Touch Bar is useless? I don't. It definitely didn't take off the way Apple hoped it did, but I don't hate it. It's not that I would rather have a Touch Bar than function keys and regular keys. As someone who has a MacBook Pro with a Touch Bar, I find it far more. I get that it's kind of expensive on the machine, but I would much rather choose a keyboard with a Touch Bar than a keyboard without a Touch Bar. Like, if there was a Magic Keyboard you could get with a Touch Bar, because I use my iMac Pro mostly, I would get that keyboard. Even if you had to charge it more often because it used way more power, I'd be fine with that. Like, the fact that you can adjust the volume so much faster. Like, right now, if you adjust the volume with the function keys or whatever, you got to press it down like that. What I love about the Touch Bar on MacBooks is I can just Just really quickly grab it and shrink it down. And same with brightness. I don't have to click it back and forth. I love the dynamicness of the function keys being all touch display. So I like the touch bar. I'm not saying it's like a requirement, like all keyboards need it, but definitely didn't take off the way Apple wanted. The other thing is predictive text. Whenever I'm on my MacBook Pro typing, I use the predictive text. So I love it on my iPhone. The fact that the keyboard just has auto fill in words at the top, and sometimes that saves you time to just tap the whole word. And they added that to the touch bar with the MacBook, and I prefer that as well. It's very handy. Back when I was in a long distance relationship with my now wife, we don't text long distance anymore, but back in the day, we would text a lot on iMessage, and back then my main machine was my MacBook Pro, and having predictive text for having lots and lots of iMessage conversations was super helpful. So I preferred that. I think the touch bar gets more hate than it deserves. A lot of people hate on it and say it's stupid or they got to get rid of it or they need to just bring back the function keys and the escape key. It's like, bruh, it's there. You just press the function button. All of those keys are still there. And you can go into system preferences and set it so that the touch bar is always the function keys. So anyone who's like, put the function keys and the escape key back on there, it's like they don't understand how it works. You can have it be function keys at all times if you want to. It's very simple. Let's see. Ted Cohen super chatted, what will the Series 5 watch all have and look like? I made a video on the Series 5, which you can watch if you haven't yet. And basically it's that there's really not much they can do. The Series 4 was such a huge upgrade that the 5 has to be small. I think there's a chance there won't be a 5 because they're just going to say the 4 is good enough and they'll just lower the price of the 4 or something like that. I don't know. And to answer that question earlier from McLada Tutorials who super chatted, just wait till the 11 comes out to make a decision. Peter super chatted 99 cents says, what's the update on the MacBook Pro 16-inch? Haven't heard much yet. Since the last video I made on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, I haven't read any more reports other than Quo said it's coming, and we know the exact display resolution, which means it's most likely happening. It's just a matter of when. When it's coming, though, I don't know for sure. Justin Miller super chatted $1 as well. Thank you very much. Peter super chatted as well. Again, sorry I didn't answer you earlier. The update on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, there isn't much. I mean, if you want updates quicker than I can make videos, just check Mac Rumors. They would definitely report on it. What is the benefit of having function keys over touch bar? It's probably just cheaper. You know, having a giant strip of an OLED display built into your computer probably makes it more expensive. And if you've seen the MacBook line in the past, you're well aware that a touch bar adds to the total cost. That's why the MacBook Air is able to be cheaper than the MacBook Pro because they don't have a touch bar to worry about. But now there's no debate because all the MacBook Pros have touch bar, even the cheap one. So at this point, it doesn't. It's all fine. I just think the touch bar gets more hate than it deserves, and Apple, like I think someone said this in the chat already, like Apple overhyped it more than they deserved, and consumers hate it more than they should. It's fine. That's what I would say. It's fine. Do you also think 5G is overrated and rushed? Yes, I'm debating making another video on 5G, but I kind of just did one. I feel like it wasn't that long ago. I read a report recently that strengthened my doubts of 5G because I read that where people were testing 5G, because, you know, in the U.S., it's like nowhere. You have to go to a specific block of Chicago to get 5G. They were using the Galaxy S10 5G, and the phone got so hot from the insane data speeds of 5G that in order to test 5G, they had to keep it in a freeze box. The phone couldn't cool itself down, so they had to turn off the 5G feature unless the phone found a way to cool itself off. And I was like, are you guys sure you still want this as a selling point? In 2019, 5G as a selling point is just stupid, in my opinion, especially on a phone. 5G's our future. Eventually, everything's going to move to 5G. I get that. I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying it's not anywhere close to ready yet. Phones are not good at handling it. It overheats them too much. And also, anything you do on your phone, 5G is not going to make a noticeable difference. Everything a phone needs to do can be handled with full-speed LTE. The issue isn't that LTE is slow. It's just that LTE isn't in that many areas, so you're not able to use it everywhere. And that issue is compounded with 5G because implementing it is even more difficult than 4G LTE, and that isn't everywhere. 4G towers can cover a much larger amount of space, and those don't even have great coverage everywhere. I mean, if you live in a major city, you'll probably experience 5G faster than others. Like if you live in the heart of LA or in New York City or Chicago, yeah, those people will probably experience 5G a lot quicker than everybody else. But while those are huge concentrations of people, a vast amount of the U.S. is not in major cities. And if you live in a place like I do, you're not going to see 5G support for many, many years. So I don't give a crap about 5G in a phone right now, and I'm probably not going to give a crap about whether or not my phone has 5G for the next 5 years. Unless you can sell me on something that my phone can do with 5G that it can't do with 4G, then I don't care about it, because right now, like, we all use our phones for social media, texting, FaceTime calls. It's none of that stuff requires 5G. It requires better 4G coverage. If we just had perfect 4G coverage everywhere, then it would be great. It would work fine for everything. But instead, they're working more on getting better speeds when I think they should be working on better volume. Getting more coverage and more stability of 4G connection is far more useful, in my opinion, than getting a couple of areas with 5G. That's stupid to me. Remember when you saw that cat outside by your car? Did you almost shoot it? I didn't almost shoot it. It happened so fast I couldn't get my weapon. But no, that would have been bad. I'm glad I didn't shoot a cat. Okay. Will the 2020 iPhone R be called the iPhone 11R2, 11SR, iPhone 11SR? Yeah, I have no idea where they're going with that. I doubt it will be any of those. They're going to have to come up with something. I'm not sure what it is, but it'll be something. T-Mobile can't even get LTE to go through a vinyl building. Well, 5G is even shorter length. Like you need a lot more towers to work for 5G, which means that implementing 5G on like the freeway is going to take years and years and years. It's super far away. And for what? What are you doing on the phone? I don't understand it. People are like, gaming, multiplayer gaming, and ping. It's like, what games are you playing? What multiplayer games are you playing on the phone that you need gigabit levels of internet to get stable? Like, it's gross. I don't get it. Let's see. Would you recommend I get the 14-inch MacBook Pro or the 16-inch MacBook Pro if I currently have the 2017 15-inch MacBook Pro? I mean, I've not seen a single leak or a single rumor for a 14-inch version, so I wouldn't count on that happening. I think it's more likely that the 16-inch MacBook Pro will be the only redesigned MacBook Pro, and then maybe down the road you'll see maybe like a smaller version of it. But yeah, if you have a current 15-inch MacBook Pro, probably you're going to be upgrading to the 16-inch. Get a screen increase. Call yourself a tech YouTuber. You're a lifestyle YouTuber, not tech. Okay, cool. What a great observation, compiler. No, other people call me tech YouTubers as well, so it's not just me. We talk about technology, and I am literally paid full-time to make YouTube videos. So yeah, that qualifies. But you are welcome to get frustrated over definitions. Go ahead. Can I use photo from gallery? Can I use photo from gallery as my watch face? Yes. Oh my goodness. Do you not know that? Would you choose Starlink or 5G in the future when it's widely adopted? I know very little about... Oh, Starlink. Sorry. I thought we were talking about Neuralink. Starlink will be cool. I want to see that actually start working. They're talking it up a storm. They're talking like Starlink's going to be really, really cool, but I need to see it to believe it first. Do you have any video camera recommendations? This one I'm using right now is pretty good. This is like the latest, I think, relatively Budget, I mean, it depends on your definition of budget, but it's called a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and I think it starts at like $1,300. Which for the camera quality and the resolution and frame rate it can shoot at, I think it's really, really good. But if your budget is $300, then just use a phone. If your budget's under $1,000 and you're looking to buy a video camera, just use your phone. There's not going to be very many video cameras under that are much better than your smartphone. The new Blackmagic is great though. Would you say MacBook is overpriced? No, because if there was something comparable you could get for cheaper, I would say it was overpriced. But there isn't a comparable experience for cheaper. I'm not the developer of the Tailosive app, so if you want updates on that, just make sure you follow Tailosive Dev on Twitter, DEV. Should my Magic Mouse start a podcast? I think so. I see no reason why it shouldn't. Yes, people. 5G is safe. Please don't anyone think it's bad for your health. You guys understand that we have 5 gigahertz capable routers, right? That we put in our homes that can support, high-speed internet through the air. Is that giving people cancer? I don't think so. They've done tests on it, guys. Anyone who thinks 5G is dangerous is not reading about it. They're reading headlines and then they're not doing any further investigation. If you guys are wondering who you should read for news, it's called Everybody. Just have a wide selection you read from so you can decipher the bullcrap from the not bullcrap. Why do you think that podcasts are so in right now? Because people have a lot of things they want to do in the background. A lot of people are driving, so they can't look at a screen. But they just want to listen to something in the background. It's like informative music. You can play it in the background and still enjoy it. You don't have to divert your entire attention to the YouTube videos. So podcasts, and they're longer form. So when people are in traffic or at work and stuff like that, they're very helpful. Anywho, I've been live for just about an hour, but if you want more live content, there is a link in the description for Twitch, where I stream a lot more often. Haven't streamed a lot lately because, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to be leaving at the end of July. I'm going to be gone for 9 days, but I'm working on videos in advance, and that's taking up a lot of my free time. I know 5G is different from 5 gigahertz. It's okay. Different subject. It's safe. That's the purpose. It's safe. But I'm working on videos in advance, which is taking up a lot of my free time, so that when I'm gone on my trip, you're still going to be getting all kinds of content being uploaded. It's difficult to make those videos, but for you guys, it's all worth it, and I'll get back to it. So thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you later. Thank you for the Super Chats, too. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.